The bank teller's hands stopped moving. She stared at her computer screen like she'd seen a ghost, then looked up at me with eyes full of confusion and fear. "Ma'am," she whispered, leaning closer so nobody else could hear. "This account shows you died in a house fire in 1992. I laughed because I thought she was joking. My name is Maya Rose Carter, and I was sitting right there in front of her, very much alive. The bank smelled like old paper and cleaning spray. Other people waited in line behind me, checking their phones and tapping their feet. I was there to open a simple savings account with the last $100 I had after losing my apartment. My hands were covered in small cuts from my job at the metal factory. I held my old driver's license like it was proof I existed. "That can't be right," I said, pushing my ID closer to her. "I've had this license since I was 21. I've been using it everywhere." Before we continue, please subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love reading your messages. The teller, whose name tag said Jennifer Walsh, typed something else into her computer. Her face went from confused to scared. She picked up her phone with shaking hands. I was 32 years old, barely surviving, and according to the bank system, I had been dead for over 30 years. My whole world felt like it was falling apart, and I didn't even know why yet. Behind all of this was a memory I tried to forget. My stepmother, Carol Mitchell, standing at the door when I turned 18, pointing outside with cold eyes. "You're not my real daughter," she'd said so many times I'd lost count. "You never were, and you never will be." Carol married my mom, Linda Carter, when I was 7 years old. This was 3 years after the man I thought was my dad died in a house fire. From the very first day I walked into Carol's house, she made it clear that I was a problem she didn't want. Her real daughter, Jessica, got new toys, fun birthday parties and hugs. I got leftover clothes, silence, and looks that told me I was in the way. Carol never hit me. She didn't need to. Her cold stares and heavy sighs told me exactly how she felt. The day I turned 18, my bags were already packed and waiting by the front door. Now, sitting in that bank with everything feeling wrong, I started to understand something terrible. Being kicked out at 18 because I wasn't her real daughter was bad. But what I was about to learn was so much worse. Because the life I'd worked so hard to build might not have even been mine in the first place. The bright lights above me buzzed loudly. Down the hall a baby cried. A printer made grinding noises. Everyone else's day kept going while mine was secretly breaking into pieces. "Miss Carter," Jennifer Walsh said quietly, "please stay in your seat. I need to make a very important phone call." "What's going on?" My voice sounded angry, but really I was scared. A security guard near the door moved closer, his hand near his walkie-talkie. "If my paperwork is wrong, I can come back tomorrow." She shook her head fast. "This isn't about wrong paperwork." She turned her screen away from me, but not before I saw red warning letters and symbols I'd never seen before. Nothing about this was normal. "The social security number you've been using," she said, in a quiet voice, "was marked as dangerous in the late 1990s. Dangerous? I almost laughed, but it wasn't funny. "That's crazy. I've had this number since my first job at the pizza place. Nobody ever said anything was wrong." Jennifer picked up her phone again, then put it down. Her eyes looked sad, and that made me feel worse. "It belonged to a little girl," she said slowly, "who died in a house fire in 1992 with her father." The whole room seemed to spin. "My dad died in a fire," I said automatically. I'd told this story 100 times before. But that was in 1995. I was 5 years old. I remember the funeral. Jennifer took a deep breath. The girl in this record was only 2 years old. Something cold ran down my back like ice water. Before I could say anything, a woman in a dark jacket appeared next to Jennifer's desk. She looked like someone who was used to handling serious problems. Maybe 50 years old, straight posture, sharp eyes behind glasses. "Lisa Grant," she said, looking at Jennifer's computer screen. Her whole face changed when she saw what was there. Confusion, then shock, then something that looked like she couldn't believe it. Oh my God, she whispered. She stood up straighter. Lock this file. Don't tell anyone else. I need to call someone very specific right now. What's happening? I asked, standing up fast. I didn't do anything wrong. Nobody thinks you did, she said quickly, holding up her hand. But what we're seeing here changes everything. She looked at my face like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Miss Carter, she said carefully. Is that the name you've always used? Yes, I said, getting frustrated. Since I was born. My mom is Linda Carter. My dad died when I was little. When exactly? She asked. November, I said. 1995. There was a fire at our apartment building. He couldn't get out. Lisa wrote something in a notebook, her pen moving carefully. How old were you? 5, almost 6, I answered. And what do you remember from before that? The question surprised me. I remember some things. Our old apartment had blue walls. My mom used to bake cookies. My dad had a loud laugh. Are those memories clear? She asked gently. Or do they feel fuzzy? I had to think about it. They felt real but also kind of blurry, like looking through foggy glass. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. I looked down and my heart started beating fast when I read the text message. Stay at the bank. Your real mother has been looking for you for 32 years. Signed, Detective Ruth Jackson, Missing Persons Unit. The words got blurry as tears filled my eyes. I wasn't dead. But the girl I thought I was might never have existed at all. My hands shook as I showed the message to Lisa Grant. She read it twice, her mouth getting tight. I just called the police station, she said quietly. They're sending people now. Jennifer Walsh looked like she might faint. Police for a bank account. This stopped being about a bank account, Lisa said. The moment that number showed up. Miss Carter, you need to understand something important. Nobody here thinks you did anything bad. But the identity you've been living with belongs to a girl who died more than 30 years ago. I sat back down in the chair because my legs felt weak. That doesn't make any sense, I whispered. I have a birth certificate, school records, medical papers. I have a whole life. All built on that same identity, Lisa said. An identity that was created before you were old enough to ask questions about it. Jennifer finally spoke again. Her voice barely louder than a whisper. Is that even her real name? I swallowed hard. Maya Rose Carter. It's the only name I've ever known. Lisa pulled a chair over and sat down across from me, getting down to my level. I need you to think very carefully. Tell me about your first memory. Not things people told you. Something you actually remember yourself. Stared at the screen until the words didn't look like words anymore. My real parents. Yes. Lisa let out a long breath. According to the Missing Persons Unit, yes. The room felt too hot and too small. What about my mom? Yes. Linda. Where is she? Lisa checked her phone. She was found earlier today. She's using a different name now, Sarah Wilson. The police have her. The words hit me like a punch. The police have her for what? For kidnapping, she said gently. There's an arrest warrant from 1993. My chest felt tight. Memories started coming back. But different now. Linda holding me too tight all the time. Her eyes always worried, always watching. How she panicked whenever I got hurt or sick. How there were no baby pictures of me from when I was really little. She stole me, I said, and the words felt wrong in my mouth. Lisa nodded. She raised you as a replacement for a child she lost. Another memory came to me. Carol Mitchell's cold stare. Her hatred. Her insistence that I wasn't her real daughter. She knew, I said suddenly. Carol. That's why she hated me so much. According to the police, Lisa said. Carol found out when you were 17. Linda told her the truth and begged her not to tell anyone until you were 18 and legally an adult. So she waited, I said bitterly. Then threw me out on my birthday. Yes, Lisa said. She thought she was helping you by making you independent. I laughed once, but it wasn't funny. She destroyed me instead. Lisa stood up. Detective Jackson will explain everything. Your real name. Your real family. I stood up on shaky legs. I don't know who I am anymore, I said. You're about to find out, she replied. And somewhere in Dallas, two people who had never stopped loving me were driving as fast as they could to meet the daughter they thought they'd lost forever. 2 hours later, I sat in a small room at the police station that smelled like coffee and floor cleaner. The walls were empty except for a clock that ticked too loud, counting every second. Across the table sat Detective Ruth Jackson. She was calm and spoke in a steady voice, like she'd done this before. Maya, she started, then paused. We'll use that name for now until you tell us what you want. I nodded. My hands squeezed together in my lap. She spread pictures across the table like playing cards. Your real name is Emma Grace Williams. The name felt strange and heavy, like clothes that hadn't been worn in forever but still somehow belonged to me. You were born in Dallas, Texas in April of 1992, Detective Jackson continued. You were 8 months old when you were taken. She slid the first picture toward me. A young woman held a baby. Her smile was huge and happy. Her eyes were brown. Not just brown but my brown. Same color, same. Tiny spot of gold near the corner. My breath caught in my throat. That's your birth mother, Detective Jackson said softly. Vanessa Williams. I picked up the photo with shaking hands. The baby could have been any baby. But the woman looked like me in a way that Linda never had. Another photo came next. A man standing beside her, one arm around her, the other hand touching the baby's head gently. Marcus Williams, Detective Jackson said. Your father. Then another photo. A little girl maybe 4 years old, smiling big at the camera. That's your sister, she said. Destiny Williams. She was born 4 years after you disappeared. I stared at the pictures, my chest tight, my mind spinning. How? My voice cracked. How did I disappear? Detective Jackson pulled out a police report. October of 1993. A park near downtown Dallas. Your mother was at the playground when a woman started talking to her about the baby. While she was distracted, you were taken from your stroller. It took less than a minute. Less than a minute. That's all it took to erase one life and create another. The woman who carried you away, Detective Jackson said, tapping the paper, was Linda Carter. She had lost her own baby the year before in a house fire. I thought of Linda, her sadness, her fear, her desperate love that was really just desperate pain. She used her dead child's identity to raise you, Detective Jackson continued. She moved to different cities, changed small details, told the same story over and over until it became your truth. And my memories, yes, of being 5 when my dad died. Created, she said gently. Not on purpose by you. Kids believe the stories they're told. Over time your brain fills in the empty spaces. I leaned back in the chair, feeling dizzy. So everything I thought I knew, I whispered, was built to protect a lie, she finished. But not to erase who you really are. She tapped her tablet, then turned it toward me. On the screen was a woman in her late 50s. Tears on her face. Hands shaking. Eyes full of hope. This is Vanessa Williams, Detective Jackson said. Today. I stared at the screen. Something deep inside me felt like it was breaking open. She never stopped looking, the detective added. Not for one single day. And for the first time in my life, I wondered what it would feel like to be someone's missing child instead of someone's mistake. They're here, Detective Ruth Jackson said quietly, putting her tablet away and standing up. They got here less than an hour ago. My stomach dropped. Here. Like in this building. She nodded. Next room. I pushed back from the table. The chair scraped loud against the floor. I don't think I can do this. That's okay, she said calmly. You don't have to do anything. This meeting is for you, not for them. But even as she said it, I knew. That wasn't completely true. Somewhere on the other side of that wall were two people who had spent 32 years with a hole in their lives shaped exactly like me. I don't remember them, I said, hating how mean it sounded. What if I look at them and feel nothing? Detective Jackson looked me in the eyes. Then that's still honest. And honesty is the only thing this story hasn't had enough of. She walked to the door and stopped, her hand on the handle. There's one more thing you should know before you meet them. Waited. Your stepmother, Carol Mitchell, called us this morning after Linda was arrested. Jaw got tight. What did she say? She admitted she knew the truth for about a year before you turned 18. Linda told her while drunk. Carol was going to call the police right away, but Linda begged her to wait. She said she didn't want your world to fall apart while you were still a kid. So instead, I said bitterly, she waited until my birthday and kicked me out. Detective Jackson nodded. In her mind, forcing you to be independent was safer than telling the truth. She thought she was protecting you from trauma. She ruined my life, I said. I spent 14 years thinking nobody wanted me. She'll have to live with that, the detective replied gently. You don't. He opened the door. The room beyond was quiet. Too quiet. A woman stood just inside, frozen in place. She was shorter than I expected, barely over 5 feet tall. Her hands shook as they reached toward me, then pulled back. Tears ran down her face freely. My baby, she whispered. My girl. My legs felt stuck. Behind her stood a man, tall and strong, holding onto a chair like he needed it to stand up. His eyes were red. His mouth trembled. Emma, he said in a rough voice. We never stopped looking. Not for one day. I opened my mouth, then closed it. I don't remember you, I finally said. I'm sorry. I was only 8 months old. Vanessa Williams stepped forward slowly, like she was afraid I might disappear if she moved too fast. She raised one hand and stopped, waiting for permission. I nodded. Her fingers touched my cheek, soft as a feather. You have your grandmother's eyes, she said through tears. I always wondered if you would. Then she wrapped her arms around me, and something inside my chest cracked wide open. I didn't know her. I didn't recognize her voice or her smell, but my body reacted before my mind could. I hugged her back. Marcus Williams joined us, his arms strong and steady. Suddenly I was surrounded by something unfamiliar and overwhelming. Belonging. In the doorway behind them stood a woman about my age, watching quietly. Same build, same hands, same eyes. My name's Destiny, she said softly. I've been waiting my whole life to meet my big sister. For the first time, the name Emma didn't feel strange. It felt like it had been waiting for me all along. The first few minutes were a blur. I remember Vanessa's arms around me. The way she kept saying my name, like saying it enough times might make me stay. I remember Marcus's hand on my shoulder, solid and real, like he was afraid I might float away if he let go. And I remember Destiny standing there, not sure whether to come closer or give me space, carrying 32 years of waiting in her eyes. We don't want to overwhelm you, Vanessa said finally, pulling back just enough to look at my face. Her hands stayed close, not wanting to let go completely. We know this is a lot. A lot didn't even begin to cover it. We sat down. Someone brought water. Nobody drank it. I need to say something, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I don't know who I am yet. I don't know how to be your daughter or your sister. Marcus nodded slowly. We're not asking you to be anything today. Vanessa reached across the table but stopped halfway, letting me decide. I put my hand in hers. We just want time, she said. Whatever you're willing to give. I had spent my whole life just trying to survive one day at a time. The idea of having time given to me felt impossible. Detective Jackson quietly left the room, leaving us alone. Destiny cleared her throat. I grew up knowing about you, she said. Not in a sad way. Just normal. You were always part of our family, even when you weren't there. I frowned a little. How? She smiled, small and nervous. They talked about you. Every birthday there was a cake with candles. An empty chair. Mom said it wasn't sad. She said it was faith. Vanessa laughed softly through her tears. I told her a mother knows. My chest felt tight. I thought of my birthdays growing up. Store-bought cake. No candles. No songs. Just surviving. We kept your room, Marcus said quietly. I wanted to change it after 10 years. Thought maybe it was hurting us more than helping. But I wouldn't let him, Vanessa added. I knew you'd come home. The words hit me harder than any mean words ever had. After a while, Detective Jackson came back. We'll keep things slow, she said. Therapy is available. Legal steps can wait. You don't have to decide anything today. He nodded. Thank you. As we stood to leave, Vanessa hesitated. Can I ask what name you'd like us to use? I looked at her, at Marcus, at Destiny. Maya is who I've been, I said carefully. Emma is who I was. Took a breath. For now you can call me Maya. Vanessa smiled, nodding. Whatever you need, sweetheart. We'll learn you all over again. As we walked out of the room together, I realized something that scared me and comforted me at the same time. For the first time in my life, I wasn't walking alone. 3 months later, I stood in a quiet house in Dallas, Texas, looking at a room that had been waiting for me my entire life. This was your nursery, Vanessa said softly from the doorway. The walls were light pink, the kind of color meant to feel warm and safe. A painted rainbow ran along the top of the walls, each color bright and cheerful. In the corner stood a crib, frozen in time, a small stuffed elephant still sitting inside. I couldn't change it, she admitted. Marcus wanted to after 10 years, said it might help us move forward. But I knew. I just knew you'd come back. I touched the crib rail, my throat tight. 32 years. Whole lifetime. And this room had stayed the same, waiting for a baby who never came home. In the closet hung tiny dresses and onesies, still wrapped in plastic, the tags yellow with age. I imagined Vanessa standing here decades ago, folding them with care, believing she'd need them any day. This is why we moved here, Destiny said quietly, leaning against the doorframe. Mom said if you ever came back, she wanted you to have a place to call home. The Williams house felt nothing like the one I grew up in. Family photos covered every wall. Not just Destiny's childhood, but dozens of pictures of what I might have looked like at 5, at 10, at 15, at 20. Every version of the woman I might have been. They celebrated your birthday every year, Destiny told me later as we sat at the kitchen table. Cake, candles, even when it was just us. I swallowed hard. Why? I shrugged. Because Mom said you were alive. And if you're alive, you celebrate. That night, lying in a bed that should have been mine all along, I thought about Linda. About the woman who raised me. About how tightly she'd held me. How scared she always seemed of losing me. She was sentenced to 12 years in prison for kidnapping. When Detective Jackson told me, I didn't know how to feel. Relief, anger, sadness, all mixed together. She lost her daughter, the detective had said gently, and made a choice that destroyed many lives. I thought of Carol Mitchell next. She got probation for not reporting the crime after she learned the truth. When the news broke, Jessica reached. I always wondered why my mom treated you that way, she said when we met for coffee. Now I understand. She was scared. Not of you. Of the truth. We were trying to build something like a sisterhood. Low, careful, complicated. The biggest surprise came from Grace Carter, the woman who thought she was my grandmother for almost 3 decades. I don't care what DNA says, she told Vanessa, gripping my hand. I loved this girl for 27 years. That makes her mine too. Vanessa smiled through tears and hugged her tight. For the first time I understood something I'd missed my whole life. Family wasn't about whose blood you had. It was about who never stopped claiming you. Healing didn't come all at once. It came in small pieces scattered across normal days. Some mornings I woke up in Dallas, confused, reaching for a life that didn't exist anymore. Other mornings I woke up calm, almost hopeful, before the weight of everything settled back on my chest. Vanessa never pushed. She learned my patterns the way a mother learns a baby's. Patient and watching. The Williams Family Center for Missing Children sat in a simple building near downtown. Vanessa had started it with nothing but grief, determination, and a folding table. Over 3 decades it had grown into something real. Bulletin boards covered the walls, filled with flyers, photographs, timelines, and handwritten notes from families who refused to give up. "This is where I spent most of my childhood," Destiny told me as she showed me around. "Not because Mom made me. Because I wanted to help." I stopped in front of a wall filled with faces. Hundreds of them. Children frozen in time. "Do they all come home?" I asked quietly. "No," she said honestly. "But some do. And sometimes one is enough to keep going." I started helping a few days a week. First I just answered phones, organized files, made coffee. Simple things. Safe things. But families would look at me differently once they heard my story. Not with pity. With hope. If she came back, maybe my child can too. One afternoon, while organizing old case files, I found something unexpected. A familiar number written in faded ink on a report from the early 1990s. The park where I had been taken. They had been close. So painfully close. One witness saw a woman carrying a baby to a car but didn't think it mattered. A park ranger noticed the vehicle but never wrote down the license plate. One interview. One detail. One person speaking up could have changed everything. That truth stayed with me. My life had moved on while theirs stood still. Destiny owned a small photography business now. Built from nothing. One evening, sitting on the back porch, she looked at me and said, "You want to work with me?" "I've done factory work my whole life," I said. "That's not exactly a resume." She grinned. "You're my sister. That's enough to start." Working beside her felt strangely natural. Same work ethic. Same stubborn streak. Same hands, scarred in the same places for different reasons. She joked with me constantly, making up for decades of silence with noise and laughter. Weekends became family dinners. No assigned seats. No counting who belonged more. Marcus taught me how to fix bicycles. Vanessa learned how I liked my tea. Small things. Real things. On my desk at the center sat a framed bill. $100. The last money I had before everything changed. Rock bottom, I learned, can sometimes be a doorway. And I had walked through it into a life I never knew was waiting. The more I learned about my own case, the harder it became to ignore how close I had come to never being found. One afternoon, Detective Ruth Jackson sat across from me at the center. Thick files sat open between us. The pages were worn, corners bent from being looked at too many times. "They reopened your case 4 separate times," she said. "Each time they were one interview away from finding Linda." I stared at the file. 4 times. She nodded. Once a park visitor remembered a woman acting strangely but didn't think it was important enough to report. Another time a witness remembered the car but thought someone else had already followed up. Small decisions. Human ones. I felt an empty ache in my chest. 32 years of separation balanced on moments where someone hesitated. "That's why your story matters," Detective Jackson continued. "People think speaking up might cause trouble. But silence causes more." That idea followed me everywhere. When Vanessa asked if I would speak at a fundraiser for the center, my first thought was to say no. "I'm not a speaker," I told her. "I'm barely keeping it together." She smiled gently. "You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be real." The room was full the night I spoke. Families, volunteers, police officers, parents holding photos of children whose smiles felt painfully familiar. My hand shook as I stepped to the microphone. "I spent 32 years believing I wasn't wanted," I said. "I was told I wasn't anyone's real daughter. What I didn't know was that someone had been searching for me every single day of that time." I told them about the park, about the missed chances, about the bank teller who didn't ignore a warning sign. If you see something, I said, my voice steady now, say something. That feeling in your gut might be the reason someone gets to come home. Afterward, a woman came up to me, tears in her eyes, holding a worn photograph. My daughter's been gone 6 years, she said. Tonight you gave me hope. That night I cried harder than I had since the reunion. Not just from pain, but from purpose. Work with destiny continued to ground me. She pushed me hard, joked with me harder, and treated me like I had always been there. One evening, as we packed up equipment, she looked at me and said, "You know, I used to talk to your picture." I laughed softly. "What did you say?" "That when you came back," she replied. "I'd teach you everything I knew." I realized then that while my past had been stolen, my future was wide open. I had lived as a ghost of a child who died long ago. Now I was learning how to live as a woman who survived. And for the first time, the truth didn't feel like a wound. Felt like a beginning. The legal process moved slowly, carefully, like the system itself understood how fragile everything still was. Paperwork, court dates, DNA tests that had already been decided by a look in the mirror. I signed documents with hands that didn't shake anymore, even when the words on the page confirmed what my heart was still learning to accept. Name change papers sat unsigned on my desk for weeks. "Maya is who you survived as," Vanessa said one evening, as we cooked dinner together. "Emma is who you were born as. You don't have to choose yet." That patience was new to me. My entire life before had been about deadlines and ultimatums. Be useful or leave. Earn your place or lose it. Here nobody rushed me. I started therapy at the center with a counselor who worked with identity trauma. Some sessions were quiet. Others left me raw and exhausted. "You were raised in survival mode," she told me once. "Now you're being asked to live in safety. That takes time." Safety felt strange. Even uncomfortable. I caught myself flinching when voices got loud with laughter. Apologizing for things that weren't my fault. Asking permission to exist in rooms where everyone wanted me there. Vanessa noticed everything. One afternoon, she stopped me as I reached for my wallet. "You don't have to earn dinner," she said gently. "You belong here." The words hit me harder than any court decision ever could. News coverage of the case spread quickly. Interview requests came in. Headlines written by people who had never known my fear or my nights sleeping in my car after being kicked out. I said no to most of them. One article quoted Carol Mitchell. She said she had done what she thought was best. That she believed forcing me to leave had made me stronger. I folded the paper and set it aside. Strength built on abandonment is not a gift. It's a scar. Jessica and I met sometimes. Our conversations were careful, honest, awkward. Neither of us pretended things were simple. "I lost my mom too," she admitted once. "Just in a different way." He nodded. "We both lost something. We just didn't get to choose." Slowly, the anger that had fueled me for years began to loosen its grip. Not because what happened was okay, but because I no longer needed it to survive. At the photography studio, Destiny handed me a camera one morning. "What's this?" I asked. "Our first joint project," she said. "Felt wrong not to put your name on it." I stared at the camera, then at her. For the first time, my name meant possibility instead of paperwork. And somewhere between camera lenses, therapy sessions, and family dinners that stretched late into the night, I began to understand something simple and deep. I wasn't rebuilding a stolen life. I was building a new one with truth as its foundation. The day I finally signed the paperwork, my hands didn't shake. The name change document sat on the table in front of me, clean and official. Ink waited patiently at the bottom of the page. "You don't have to do this today," Marcus said gently from across the room. "Or ever." "I know," I replied. And I meant it. I stared at the line where my new name would live. Emma Grace Williams. It didn't erase Maya. It didn't make the years I survived under another identity meaningless. It simply told the truth. Sign. Felt less like becoming someone new and more like stepping fully into myself. The court hearing was quiet. No drama. No speeches. Just a judge who looked at me kindly and said, "Welcome home, Miss Williams." Afterward, Vanessa cried in the hallway. Destiny hugged me so hard my ribs hurt. Marcus squeezed my shoulder and said nothing, which somehow said everything. Life didn't suddenly become easy. Triggers still caught me off guard. Certain smells. Certain tones of voice. The sight of packed bags near a door could still make my heart race. But now, when that happened, I wasn't alone. One evening, sitting on the back steps with Vanessa, I asked the question I had been avoiding. "Did you ever hate her?" asked Linda. Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. "I hated what she did," she said carefully. "But I also see a woman who lost her child and broke in ways nobody helped her heal. That doesn't excuse it," I said. "No," she agreed. "But understanding helps me breathe." I thought of Linda in prison, of Carol living with the choices she made, of the years that could never be returned. And I realized something unexpected. Forgiveness wasn't about letting anyone off the hook. It was about setting myself down. The center continued to grow. New volunteers, new cases, some reunions, some heartbreaks. Every success felt personal. Every loss reminded me why the work mattered. One afternoon, a young boy came in with his uncle. Recently recovered. Quiet. Watchful. I saw myself in his eyes. I knelt down in front of him and said softly, "You're safe now. You don't have to be strong anymore." He leaned into me without a word. In that moment everything aligned. Pain. The past. Purpose. I hadn't just been found. I had been prepared. As months passed, my story stopped feeling like an emergency and started feeling like a responsibility. Not a burden. Calling. The Williams Family Center became more than a place I volunteered. It became where my past and future met in a way that finally made sense. I started sitting in on first meetings, helping families fill out forms, translating fear into steps. I knew that fear. I had lived inside it. One case in particular stayed with me. A father named James. His daughter missing for nearly 5 years. He sat across from me, holding a photograph so tightly his knuckles were white. "Everyone tells me to give up," he whispered. "But I can't." I looked him in the eyes. "Don't," I said. "Not yet." He cried then. Deep shaking sobs. The kind that come from being seen instead of dismissed. That night, Vanessa watched me quietly as I typed notes at the kitchen table. "You're different lately," she said. "I think I finally understand why I survived," I replied. She nodded like she'd known all along. At the photography studio, Destiny noticed the change too. I worked with more confidence now. Less like I was waiting for the ground to disappear beneath me. "You walk like you belong somewhere," she teased one afternoon. "I do," I said. And it was true. News about my case continued to spread online. Messages came from strangers. Some grateful, some angry, some desperate for answers I couldn't give. One message stood out. A man wrote that he had seen something years ago. A moment that didn't sit. But he never reported it. He carried that guilt every day. I wrote back. "You didn't fail forever," I told him. "You failed once. What matters is what you do next." He later became a volunteer. Healing, I learned, isn't a straight line. Some days I felt whole. Other days I felt like pieces of different timelines that didn't quite fit. But even on the hardest days, I no longer questioned my worth. I wasn't someone who had been tolerated. I was someone who had been searched for. And that truth changed everything. The truth about my past didn't just change how I saw myself. Changed how I saw the world. I began noticing how easily people dismissed small moments. How often someone said, "It's probably nothing," instead of asking one more question. I used to be one of those people. I had learned early that survival meant not drawing attention. Now I knew attention could save lives. When I was invited to speak at a training event for store workers and security guards, my first thought was to refuse. Standing in front of strangers still made my skin prickle with old fear. But Vanessa squeezed my hand. This is how we turn pain into prevention, she said. So I stood at the front of the room and told them about a park in 1993. About a woman starting a conversation. About a stroller left alone for seconds. One person noticed something, I said, and thought someone else would handle it. That's how 32 years disappear. The room was silent. Afterward, a woman came up to me, her voice shaky. I've ignored that feeling before, she admitted. I won't again. That was enough. At home, life settled into a rhythm that still felt like a miracle. Sunday dinners. Loud conversations. Destiny arguing with Marcus about cameras. Vanessa texting me reminders to eat vegetables. One night, as we cleaned up after dinner, I found myself laughing freely. No hesitation. No holding back. A sound. I froze, surprised by it. Vanessa noticed. What? I didn't know I could feel like this, I said. Without waiting for it to be taken away. She cupped my face gently. That's what safety feels like. Jessica and I made progress too. Low. Imperfect progress. We talked about childhood. About how silence in a house can be louder than shouting. I don't expect forgiveness, she told me once. I just want honesty. That's all I can offer, I said. And it was enough to keep trying. Sometimes late at night, I thought about the girl I used to be. The one who packed her bags at 18 and walked into the world believing she was alone. I wished I could reach back through time and tell her the truth. You are not unwanted. You are missing. And you are loved beyond measure. I couldn't change her past. But I could honor her survival. And every day I did. There was one thing I hadn't done yet. I hadn't gone back to the place where everything changed. The park was still there. Renovated but recognizable. New playground equipment. New benches. Same trees. I stood across the street one quiet morning, my hands in my jacket pockets, heart pounding like I was about to meet a ghost. Vanessa stayed in the car. Take your time, she said. I'll be right here. I walked slowly across the grass, counting steps I had never taken as an adult. Somewhere near the swings, a young father was pushing his toddler. The child laughed, kicking their feet happily. My breath caught. He noticed me watching and smiled politely. I smiled back, then forced myself to look away. This wasn't my moment to intrude. It was my moment to remember. 32 years ago, my life had been lifted from a stroller like an object someone thought they needed more than the person it belonged to. No violence in the moment. Just a choice made in grief. I didn't feel anger standing there. Felt clarity. I went back to the car and sat quietly for a while. Vanessa didn't speak. She didn't need to. That night, I added a new line to my speeches. Evil doesn't always look violent, I told audiences. Sometimes it looks desperate. That's why awareness matters. The center launched a new program soon after. Training materials. Simple language. Trust your instincts. Speak up. One report matters. We found 12 children that year. 12 families made whole. At home, Destiny teased me about becoming the serious one. Marcus called me his rock. Vanessa just watched me with a quiet pride that still made my chest ache. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sun go down, Vanessa said, "Do you ever wish things had been different?" I thought carefully before answering. "Yes," I said. "But I don't wish I was someone else." She smiled. "Neither do I." The $100 I had in my wallet the day I walked into that bank now sits framed on my desk at the center. It's not there because of the money. It's there because that was the moment everything broke open. I walked in believing I was a failure who had finally run out of options. I walked out knowing I had been missing. Not abandoned. Searched for. Not discarded. Loved in ways I couldn't remember but could finally feel. If you listened all the way to the end, thank you. Truly means more to me than you know. Before we wrap up, go ahead and like this video and share it if the story touched you. I spent 32 years living as Maya Rose Carter, carrying the weight of a name built on loss. I was told I wasn't my stepmother's real daughter, never realizing I was someone else's real daughter entirely. A daughter whose family never stopped calling my name. Now I live as Emma Grace Williams. Daughter, sister, a woman with a past that hurts and a future that heals. Sometimes the worst day of your life is just the day the truth finally finds you. Sometimes losing everything is how you learn what was always meant to be yours. I wasn't nobody's real daughter. I was somebody's everything. And they waited 32 years to say one word to me. Welcome home. For another story that fits your mood, click the video on the left. To hear the latest one, choose the video on the right.